Hey yo! Today we'll learn about cryptography and network security. Cryptography depends on three things. Dorothy will explain them to you. First is the type of operation for transforming plain text to ciphertext. This can be done in two ways. First is the substitution, for substituting each letter of the plain text with some other letter. For example, ABCD gets substituted to EFGH. Second is transformation. Here you jumble up the plain text letters. For example, A, B, C, D, which is the plain text, gets jumbled up to C, D, A, B, which is the ciphertext. Second point on which cryptography depends is the number of keys used. You can either use one key, also known as the shared or the secret key, or you can use two keys, one public key and the other private key. Third is the way in which plain text is processed. There are two ways to do that. First is the block manner, in which both the input and the output are processed and outputted one block at a time. Second is the stream method, in which both input and output are processed and outputted one element at a time. Next, the types of attacks. Firstly, what is an attack? Consider a scenario in which Henry wants to send a message to Ella. If Charles is present in between with an intention to read or modify the contents of the message, then Charles is an attacker. Attacks can be of two kinds. First is the passive attack, where the attacker only reads or sees the contents of the secret message. Second is the active attack, where the attacker modifies the contents of the secret message. Now, which one is more dangerous? Passive attack. Why? Since if the contents are not modified and only monitored, then there will be no way ever to find out if an attack is even taking place. This is far more difficult to detect. Active and passive attacks are okay, but how can Charles probably read these messages when they are encrypted? He has two options. First is the brute force method. In this, an attacker tries all possible keys on the ciphertext until it yields a logical-looking plain text. Consider an example. Here, the plain text is, I am going. Using a key with some encrypting algorithm, a ciphertext PFG KLMKS is obtained. Now, the attacker will try to decrypt the obtained ciphertext by trying all the possible keys one by one along with the decryption algorithm. Now, only the key of pink color yields a valid looking plain text. The data is now compromised. In order to reduce the possibilities of the brute force attack, large-sized keys should be used, so that it becomes near impossible for the attacker to try all the possible keys one by one. DES uses 56-bit key. Triple DES uses 168-bit key. AES uses 128-bit key at least. Realizing that the brute force attack is difficult, he's got another option of doing cryptanalysis. Cryptanalysis involves knowledge of the encryption algorithm and the general characteristics of plain text. Knowledge can be of 5 types. First, only the ciphertext is known. Second is the knowledge in which plain text is known. Third is the knowledge in which the attacker can choose a plain text. Fourth is the knowledge in which he can choose a ciphertext. Fifth is the knowledge in which he can choose both a cipher as well as a plain text. To summarize, firstly, cryptography depends on 3 things. Number 1, how is plain text transformed to ciphertext? Number 2, number of keys used. And number 3, how is plain text processed? Secondly, attacks are of 2 types. One is the active attack, second is the passive attack. Thirdly, despite encryption, how can attacker possibly read those messages? One is through brute force attack, and number 2 is through cryptanalysis.
created using Powtoon.